I'm Cherylanne Skolnicki, and this is Brilliant Balance, the show for working women who are ready to shine. Each week, I bring you ideas, inspiration, and insight on balance, business, and getting it all done gracefully. You ready? Let's be brilliant. This is episode 106 of the Brilliant Balance podcast. And happy November to you. I don't know how that happened. Y'all, this is a big week around here. I hope you are snuggled in somewhere with a hot mug of something delicious as you listen to this episode. It just feels like October's like magical, right? And November is, winter is coming right around the corner. We have a big week here. We are heading into 4 days of performances for my oldest daughter. Her high school is performing Mary Poppins this year. So we've been supercalifragilisticexpialidocious all over the place for months. And I do love this show. Thank goodness I love this show because it is her third time doing it. She was in a regional theater company that did Mary Poppins a couple of years ago. Her grade school did Mary Poppins last year. And this year, her first year of high school, that is the show they are doing. So we have Tech Week coming up, late nights all week with rehearsals, and then a very exciting weekend ahead. It is my favorite thing. So I am delighted for her and so excited to see this rendition of the show. Next weekend will be crazy, but this weekend was a little more normal. I was doing a number of things and around the house and in our household, and I was doing some financial housekeeping. And one of the things that I wanted to do was have my husband change the automatic payment date on one of his 2 credit cards. Both the cards were like hitting on top of each other, and I was trying to smooth out the cash flow a little bit. And when I asked him, did you do it? He said, yes. And I said, good, you changed the Amex. And he said, no, I changed the Visa. And that may sound like a very little thing, but I may have freaked out for a few minutes, reminding him that that was not the plan. You know, we had talked about changing the Amex payment date until I paused and took a breath and realized that the change he made would get us to exactly the same place, right? It just hadn't been my plan. I had a specific idea of which one I wanted changed, and he picked the other one. And that's how it works when it comes to expectations. It was such a good, very in-the-minute reminder of what I want to talk about today, which is how our story of the way things were supposed to be causes us suffering. Even if it's a minor freak-out moment of suffering, right? Our attachment to the way we thought things were going to be is the source of a lot of suffering. And there's so much power to be gained when we let go of that whole idea of the way it was supposed to be and accept the way it is. So we all carry around expectations about how the world should work, how our day should unfold, whether we realize it or not. These can be very simple things like what the weather will be like. We're going to a football game on a Saturday, and our idea is we have this crisp fall day pictured with beautiful sunshine and the colored leaves as backdrop. And we wake up and it's rainy and cloudy. And that's an expectation that's shifted. Or we have an expectation that we're going to get in the car and drive to work and there's not going to be traffic, or there's going to be the same amount of traffic that there is on every other day. And instead there's an accident and we're in gridlock. And that's an expectation that's shifted. Or we have an expectation that we'll go into the office and the Wi-Fi will work. And then we go in and we have a big, video conference to do and the Wi-Fi is not working. Even things like, will our hair cooperate on the day of the big presentation or meeting, right? When reality smacks our expectations upside the head, we have to deal with not just the annoying reality, but also with our unmet expectations. When we have an expectation and it's not met, it means we kind of suffer twice, right? So in today's episode, I want to talk about how we can let go of the notion of the way it was supposed to be. And sometimes it's easier to practice this with small things like the weather, right? Or a bad hair day, rather than with the really big things of, I thought I would be married by now. I thought I would have children by now. I thought I would live in a different home. I thought I would have a different kind of job. But the principles are the same, and the practice and the way through is identical. So let's talk today about a few questions that you might ask yourself, a few thoughts you might allow to surface when you realize that you're suffering because of expectations. And the first thing I would recommend is acknowledging your expectations. Sometimes we don't even know that's what's happening, right? Sometimes we don't even realize that we're setting an expectation and that if it doesn't get met, it could set us up for additional disappointment. And I'll tell you a story about this. A couple of weeks ago, my two youngest were in a junior American Ninja Warrior competition. They love that show. They love the competitions, and there's quite a circuit kind of starting about this. So my two youngest were entering a competition locally, and my daughter, who's 9, was on her way there saying, I hope that my age is the oldest in my age group, right? They break them up. So it's like 6 and 7-year-olds, 8, 9, and 10-year-olds, or 8 and 9-year-olds. And she's 9, and she was hoping that her age group would put 9-year-olds at the top of the age group, right? Which makes sense because then they have a bit of an advantage in terms of size and strength. And she was gaming out like, well, what will happen if she ends up in a group that's 9 and 10-year-olds or 9, 10, and 11-year-olds, and she's the youngest in the age group? In her mind, that would be a disadvantage. So this was like really something on her mind on the drive over. And I had to tell her that if she went in being really attached to, I hope I'm the oldest in my age group, and then it didn't happen, that she would be flustered. She would be recovering from that unmet expectation, and it could actually affect her performance. So instead, I asked her to go in curious about where she would land, knowing that she didn't have control over it and she wouldn't have certainty about it before she walked in the door. So now the frame is it's an adventure, right? I wonder where I'll land. I wonder if my age placement will be an advantage or something I'll have to overcome. That is a very powerful frame, right? First, acknowledging that you have an expectation as it's brewing, as it's developing, and then releasing it and realizing that it's now an adventure. I don't know how it will be, right? I'll have to make adjustments. I'll have to pivot. I'll have to react based on what the reality is that I'm presented with. Something like, I don't want it to rain. I don't want it to rain on that day. Shifting that to, I wonder how the weather will be that day, right? I wonder what I will do based on what the weather is and the effect that it has. Much more powerful frame, but important at the beginning to simply acknowledge that you have expectations and then to challenge yourself to drop them. Hey friend, ever wondered why you're so tired all the time? Why you need that afternoon caffeine hit every day just to stay in the game? Hint, you probably need more sleep. So I created something just for you. It's my 7-day sleep makeover. I'll teach you the 3 steps you need to move from exhausted to energized so you can live out your brilliant dreams. Head to brilliantbalance.net/sleep and start your sleep makeover today. You're going to love this. Second piece of this framework is if you had an expectation and the reality is turning out to be different from your expectation, ask yourself, is it worse, right? Is it actually worse or is it just different? This is like my credit card payment timing example. My reaction, my initial emotional response was it's wrong, right? Or it's worse. Think about something like how the dishwasher got loaded. It was wrong. It wasn't my way, right? But is it worse or is it just different? Sometimes we react as though it's a bad outcome. But in truth, it's just a different outcome than we expected. So the dress we wanted to wear that day is in the laundry, and we have to choose a different one. It may not be a worse choice. It's just different. Or we wanted to order our favorite soup at that restaurant at lunch, and they don't have it today. And we choose something different. Is it worse, right? Or is it just a different option? Or we wanted it to be hot and sunny on our beach vacation, and we got cooler and cloudy weather. Is it really worse? Right? Or is it just different? Our adaptability can be at play here, our level of attachment. If you are finding that you really suffer when something doesn't go according to your plan, you want to examine your level of attachment to what I sometimes call plan A, right? You went in, plan A is this is how it's going to go down. And when it doesn't, if you really are experiencing a lot of anguish because of that, you want to play with how do I release my level of attachment or the level of control that I'm trying to have over plan A. Because there's such a range of options that can be positive, that can be powerful. And if we're super attached to option one, it's hard to even see the beauty or the joy in options 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. Okay. This is something that's been a big challenge for me, and I've really found a lot more ease with it lately. I still definitely struggle with this sometimes. I like things to go my way. I like to have a plan. I like the plan to play out the way I intended. But learning to release some control over those expectations and to lean into the adventure of the unknown has been really transformative. And I think this third piece that I'm about to share is part of what's made that possible for me. It's a question you can ask yourself, which is, what if this is happening for me? Exactly as it should be. What if this thing that's different than I thought it would be is actually being handed to me like a gift? It's happening for me. I know the phrase, everything happens for a reason, is a phrase that I heard a lot growing up. It's definitely one of my mom's very favorites. And I was told that phrase a lot growing up. And it sort of has its roots in the same place, right? With this idea that everything is happening for me. When you make the shift to decide everything happening in your life is happening for you. It's happening to teach you. It's happening to nudge you. It's happening to elicit some sort of emotional response or growth. Then you can more quickly look for the blessings in everything that happens, right? Sometimes, for example, if I'm sitting in traffic, I'll think, what if this delay is keeping me out of an accident that I would have been in if I'd been traveling at the pace I wanted to be, right? Like I avoided arriving at that intersection at that exact moment in time because of this traffic. What if that's happening for me? It reminds me sometimes there's a country song by Garth Brooks, and the title of the song is Sometimes I Thank God for Unanswered Prayers. And he tells this story about, I'm going to probably get this wrong, but going to like a high school football game at the high school he went to, running into an old girlfriend and thinking back to how much he had wanted that to be the woman that he, married. But he was at this game with his wife thinking, gosh, if that had worked out, I wouldn't have met the woman I ended up spending my life with. And I'm sure a lot of us have those stories of what we really thought we deeply wanted in the moment not coming to fruition, and yet that opening a pathway for something else. So if you can think about that question, especially in difficult times, and again, always easier to practice these techniques on the little things, right? What if this rainy day is happening for me? What if that kid who woke up sick this morning and I had to go to work late, what if that's happening for me instead of to me? And then you can start applying it to the bigger things in life. The bigger areas of life that may not be in alignment with your expectations yet, or maybe ever. It's easier to practice sometimes on those smaller things. But that one question, the idea that everything is as it should be, and in what if it is unfolding for me? How would that change your response? How would that change the next series of actions that you take? So if you find yourself struggling when things don't go as planned, first of all, know that that's normal, right? Almost all of us have expectations. We're carrying them around with us, but not knowing that we do have expectations can be part of the suffering. So acknowledge your expectations, ask yourself, speak them out loud. Wow, I had an expectation that there was going to be no traffic this morning. Had an expectation that it was going to be a sunny day. I had an expectation that I would be at the VP level by now. And then ask yourself, is this outcome that I'm currently experiencing truly worse? Or is it just different? Is it just something I need to accept and roll with? And then that final question of what if it's happening for me, right? What if it's not only different, it's actually nudging me in a direction that I need to or may want to go ultimately? Very powerful reframe question that I want you to sit with. If something in this episode today touched a nerve with you, right? If you find yourself coming back to that question, especially the last one, I would love to hear from you. I'd love to hear your stories about how that reframe is helping you. And you can do that in the comments on the podcast. You can do it in the Brilliant Balance Facebook group. If you're not in that group yet, just come on over to Facebook and search for Brilliant Balance and join the group. And also, if there's someone in your life who you think needs to hear this, maybe someone who really has a high level of attachment to their expectations, share this episode with her. It's so powerful to put the words into someone's hands at exactly the right moment. So I would love it if you could just take the link to the episode and put it in the hands of someone who needs this message. And if you love the show and you're getting a lot out of all of these episodes, take a second to leave a review. I read every single one of them, and they're so wonderful to hear, whether they're constructive and there's feedback in them or whether there's praise. I love hearing your thoughts. Like this is one from Colleen in Germany. She said, amazing and life-changing. I love Cherylanne's advice and perspective each week. It's made such a huge difference in being able to manage home plus working full-time with 3 kids. Thank you so much. Well, thank you, Colleen, for the review. I love getting them. And if you have a minute today and you're listening and you can scroll down and leave a rating and review, I would be so appreciative. That's all for today, my friends. Till next time, let's be brilliant.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.